What's going on, everybody? Mortem here, this time bringing you my first impressions of Empire of Sin. Empire is a fairly interesting game where we take on the role of a mobster in the 1920s as we attempt to build our empire. The game itself was developed by Romero Games and published by Paradox Interactive. Now, Paradox is known for publishing a certain brand of strategy game more so than anything else. And my first impression of Empire of Sin is that it's an interesting blend of story and strategy. Now, I will say it primarily hinges on the strategy part of it. There are these isometric turn-based battles that anybody familiar with any CRPG or TRPG will likely be pretty accustomed to. However, in addition to that, there is also, again, the strategy element where we're actually trying to maintain all of our different rackets or our illegal businesses, as well as provide those places with supplies, all while fending off other mobsters trying to do the same thing. Now, one of the things on my mind when I was going into this game was how much of the game was story versus how much of it was really just the strategy part of it, because I had heard mixed things either way. And it's an interesting blend. Basically, you'll pick one of several mobsters to start the game with, and they will have their own little backstory, as well as a bunch of perks and abilities that specific mobster uses in combat. Now, each of these playable characters does seem to have a little story attached to them, and throughout the world, on top of the strategy part of it and running your business, there is actually side quests, etc. to take on and manage. You can actually hire on other mobsters to work for you and be your lieutenants, etc. And they can actually give you side quests as well. These mobsters seem to be pretty set in stone, like they're not random or anything. They are mobsters with their own backstory as well, separate from the playable ones. So you can kind of do their quests and learn a little bit about them, all while traversing the city of Chicago. The world map itself was interesting. You'll run around, attack other mobsters, rackets, etc. And they did actually add some loot and stuff that you can find around the world map. But mostly you'll just be running around looking for rackets or fending off other mobsters before they come to attack you and your businesses. And then, of course, there is the issue of the police, as all of your illegal dealings will, of course, draw their attention. So you have to manage how much your activities are actually drawing in police attention. And to kind of sum all of that up to a more fine point, my impressions are largely that the game is primarily a strategy game. However, they did try to bake a decent amount of story in to help you roleplay your character. The combat is surprisingly robust while being simple at the same time. They tried to add a lot of unique abilities, etc. to vary up the turn-based combat, but most of the mobsters that work for you fall into one of a couple of classes, and your mobster, your player character, is really the only one with like unique abilities, and thus the enemy mobsters, which are the playable characters that you chose not to play, also have their own unique abilities, so they do some interesting stuff. But beyond that, the combat is tactical, yes, but at the same time pretty straightforward. But the combat and the strategy are the big part of it, and then there's a little bit of story attached to it. And beyond that, a lot of the gameplay is really revolving around emergent storytelling, from going to war, etc. with these factions, in that strategy fashion that Paradox Interactive specifically is pretty known for publishing. Overall, pretty interesting though. I will be 100%ing this game before I put a review out for it. And the last thing I want to leave you guys with is that I had heard prior to playing this game that the launch was pretty rough. I was planning on playing it at launch, but honestly I just got super busy with other videos and didn't have the time. But then I heard that the, again, launch wasn't particularly great, and then there were a bunch of updates that followed, etc. And I'm kind of diving in now to basically evaluate where the game is and kind of report back to people on the state of the game now. And I would say overall what I've experienced first impressions wise is that at least so far the game has been very refined. Everything works. All of the systems are pretty fleshed out. However, I could see it getting a bit stale after a while because the gameplay stays pretty much the same, because basically you fight these mobsters, you take over their stuff, you build your empire until you're the last one standing, and then it's game over and you start again with maybe a different mobster or something. So at least currently it kind of seems like, unless you just really don't like strategy games, that this game isn't too bad overall, and that they've improved it at least a bit with all of those updates. But we'll kind of see from there where the review takes me. But in the meantime, hope you guys enjoyed the video. If you did, please remember to like, comment, subscribe, all that YouTube jazz. But regardless of any of that, truly, thank you so much for watching. May you wander in wisdom and have an amazing day.